Comic book and manga fans, this is H.H. German from Sigma Comics, back again with another video, which I think is going to hit home for a lot of our audience. Men are hurting out there, and that concept figures centrally in our upcoming book called Calico Unwanted Men. I mean, the title says it right there. If you're a man, you're really going to want to check out Calico Unwanted Men. Let's tell you who we are, and then let's get into the topic about men hurting. We're Sigma Comics. We are dedicated to fighting animal cruelty through comics with our series, Here Comes Calico. The Calico series features our beloved anti-hero Hector Gill, who goes after people who abuse animals with extreme justice. He gets intel every day all across New York City on people who abuse and kill animals and goes after those a-holes with extreme justice. If you love animals or you hate animal cruelty, you are going to love Here Comes Calico. It's not for little kids, but definitely ages 13 and up, you're really going to love this series. And what you're looking at here is our website, sigmacomics.com. When you buy from us, every penny goes to fighting animal abuse. You're looking at our trade paperbacks. We have comic book series here. We have our trade paperback starting with Calico Street Math, 240 pages, collects the first 8 issues. Beautiful volume, which again you can get at sigmacomics.com, along with our manga series. We have a great 4-volume manga. We also have Green Eye Bandito, the prequel. And finally, we have merch as well that you can get on the website. What you cannot get on the website right now is this book I told you about before, and the reason we're doing this video, Calico Unwanted Men. Okay, this is our latest gem. It's on Kickstarter right now, and all you need to do is go to kickstarter.com, type in Calico Unwanted Men, and you can pre-order this book right now. Look at the testimonials, folks. You got legendary writers like Jeff Loeb. Of course, you'll know him from the Batman series, Long Halloween, which he did with Tim Sale, and a bunch of other books. You have David Finch, the incredible artist David Finch. He's currently working with Robert Kirkman on a book called Skinbreaker for the Skybound imprint and Image on Image Comics. And of course, finally, look at this, Ryan Otley. This guy's just been kicking butt. Another great artist on Invincible and Battle Beast. Again, Skybound. So with Robert Kirkman. These are great comic book creators. And look at what they have to say. Listen, if it's good enough for them, it'll definitely be good enough for you. And again, all you need to do is go to Kickstarter and check out Calico Unwanted Men. You can download the first chapter, check it out, and see if you like it. I know you will. And of course, you could watch the trailer on that same page, and then of course back one of the rewards. All right, here let's get into the title. Men are hurting. Okay, this is obviously a personal topic for me because I am a man, right? You can't hit closer to home. But this video is in reference to this book we've got coming out, and again, it's the central topic. Calico Unwanted Men. All right. Being a man today it's a very difficult thing, I have to say. It's not an easy thing. There's so many pressures on you. There are different facets and layers to pretty much everything that are significantly different than they were, even a couple of decades ago. I remember just hearing the stories of my family and their hard work getting here to this country, the USA. My father came here in his early 20s. Okay, he came here in his early 20s and came here with very, very little money in his pocket, and he took the first job they gave him. Okay, and shortly afterwards, he married my mom. This is all back in the 60s and early 70s. Of course, I was born in the mid 70s. I am a Gen Xer. But very different situation. And you could say, well, things were terrible for women and all these other things. That certainly is true. Okay, women did not have it easy, even up until a few decades ago. Okay, at the same time, there were socioeconomic factors that were very different than they are now. Okay, and the stories that I'd hear about, my father getting up super early, in some cases, having to, you know, shovel his way to his car to get to his car to get to work. Of course, both my parents worked in the New York City hospital system. There's no taking off. This is life and death situations, and we have patients that need the medical professionals being there and doing these jobs. Okay, these cars weren't as well, I guess they were reliable. It's just the conditions were very difficult, and you don't have the workplace infrastructure that you have now that you had then. You had to be there. There are lots of things like that where you just had to figure out a way, regardless of what the issue was, to be a man and just tough it up and get there. And not only for yourself, but for your family. You need to get the kids to school, your wife to work, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Very tough men, and I keep seeing reports about testosterone levels being significantly different. Even as recent as the 70s and 80s, uh, compared to the testosterone levels now. And I think there's a variety of factors again that play into this. But what we have seen are things that are actually pretty shocking. And let's talk about a couple of these things. One of them is the college graduation rates. You want to talk about the uh, the intellect and the forming of the mind and preparing oneself to be a professional in today's world. Of course, a college degree has always been a central component to that, right? And it turns out, if you actually look at the data, women have actually been outpacing men in college enrollment and graduation for decades. And the gap is only widening. There's a 10-point gap right now. As of 47% of young women aged 25 to 34 hold a bachelor degree compared to just 37% of young men. And the growth rates for that, the rate of growth for women completing college is nearly double that of men since 1995. Think about that. The rate of growth for women completing college is nearly double that of men. Since 1995, the share of young women with a bachelor's degree has skyrocketed from 22 percentage points, 25% to 47%. In that same time frame, men saw only a 12-point increase, going from 25% to 37%. Folks, when you have those kind of numbers, uh, that's going to show up in the workforce, which is the next slide, right? So not only intellectually in preparing oneself for the workforce, but also in the workforce. As of early 2026, women have overtaken men to make up over 50% of the U.S. workforce, of course, excluding agricultural jobs. The current job growth rates, women are driving the vast majority of recent job growth between February 2024 and February 2026. The U.S. economy added roughly 1.2 million jobs. Over 814,000 of those were jobs taken by women. Think about that. 1.2 million jobs, and of those, over 814,000 of those were taken by women, the overwhelming majority, folks. The rate is actively shifting in opposite directions between early 2025 and 26. The share of the jobs held by women increased by nearly 300,000, while overall male employment actually dropped by roughly 142,000 jobs. And in the managerial capacity, because women now hold the majority of the college degrees, they're rapidly taking over professional and managerial roles. Women currently making up 53% of all college educated workers, 58 of professional roles like healthcare practitioners and social services, and 46% of managers in the U.S. Up from just 29 in 1980. So these are dramatic increases, okay, in both the preparation to enter the workforce and the workplace itself, the workforce itself. Women are pretty much taking over and have taken over. And the trend is just looking that it's only going to continue in that direction. So what do you get from that? You get men committing suicide at increasing rates. You get men dropping out of college. You have depression It's becoming a big trend now. Um, it's showing up everywhere in schools, in behavior, in schools as well. Uh, and this is just data. You could talk about data all you want, but you see it every day. You see the the outcomes when you see the headlines, when you see these stories about suicide, about men going and doing all kinds of crazy things. Uh, we can talk about the whys of those, and there are channels that do that. There are channels that focus on self-improvement. I could tell you for myself, if we're going to spend some time on that, if you're a man and you're listening to this, and the words that you're hearing from me, and these statistics are really impacting you, um, I can tell you just for myself, I'm now in my 50s. Okay, so I've lived, quite a bit of life. I did get a college degree. I went to a 4-year school. Actually, I have 5 years of college because I went to one before that. So pretty decently educated, and worked in the workforce. Of course, my entrance into the workforce was in the late 90s, and it wasn't easy in New York City. But I got in, I did what I did, and I got done what I needed to do, and I worked very hard. I learned working for companies how to do what I do for myself, you know. And I can tell you that it most certainly wasn't easy. Okay, and in the midst of that, you have things like relationships. You have romantic relationships, your relationships with your family and friends, and how those are altered with all those additional stresses, and of course, living in the most populated area in the whole country per capita, New York City, right? Just being here, living in the city, with all the noise and stimuli, that's another factor, a layer that factors in to everything you're competing with attention wise, right? And that impacts your relationships, your health, okay, your peace of mind, how you engage, uh, your activities and work, et cetera, and your ability to perform the work. There's people that I know, guys I know, believe it or not, that drive an hour and a half to get to their job, okay, because they don't want to be in the city. They want to be uh, in the suburbs where they could actually focus and grow, cultivate their families away from all the noise and crime. And they do that for their families. Think about that. An hour and a half one way. So you got 3 hours commute. I know people like that. Very near and dear to me. Okay, that's a man doing what he thinks is best for his family. You don't think that's going to take a toll on that person? And that's just one example. And he has a job, right? So a lot of guys out there don't have jobs. I have guy friends out there, and people that I care about that are men that have been unemployed for over a year. That was unheard of back when I got out of school, back in the late 90s. Someone unemployed for over a year? Yeah, I know them, and I know more than one. I know quite a few men who've been unemployed for over a year. It's not easy, folks. Okay, this is not a this. I don't know who's telling you that the economy is very good. But here we are in 2026. We're in the middle of, actually, we're early in Q2, 2026. And yeah, this economy isn't great. There's people getting laid off left and right. And now with the advent of AI, uh, companies trying to figure out ways to streamline their infrastructure and internal processes to put out the same products and or services while investing less in the internal resources to get those things done. Okay, we've been seeing this for decades now, where you would get, not that I eat this, but you'd get a Big Mac, let's say, 20, 30 years ago, and the thing was bigger and heavier and had more of the product in the burger, and now you have a lot less. It weighs less, and or it's made up of ingredients that are dramatically cheaper. Okay, yet they're selling them for much, much more. So just as an example, of course, these numbers are just figurative. But if it took, let's say, or if it cost, let's say, 24 cents to make a Big Mac, okay, back in 1985, okay, and you maybe sold it for, $2.50, okay, you're still making a healthy profit there. But nowadays, again, this is all figurative. They could probably make it for 3 or 4 cents and sell you that thing for $7, $8. Okay, so this is an example in a product focused business, but you could do the same with any type of business. Okay, service oriented business. Today's companies are trying to spend the least amount of money they can to put out the same level of service and or the same level of product while charging you more. And this is the thing. It's the way we do business now. And you could say, oh, well, it's capitalism and it's great and all this, but it really isn't, because there are ramifications for this. Okay, there's somebody who has to be behind that and working on those things and or taking those hits. If you look at the salaries, there really hasn't been a dramatic. What I'm going to say is, if you look at going back to the late 70s, the parity between the inflation and what you're paying these employees, and then of course what they have to pay when they leave their companies and offices to live their lives, there has not been the kind of parity that you saw prior to the late 70s. Okay, companies are not what they were, and they're acting in a way, in a level of capitalism that we have not seen ever in our history. Okay, and that again is having ramifications, and you're seeing it every day with the health that we have as a country, as a people, and how we behave. Okay, studies show unequivocally that our diet has a significant impact in the way we behave in society. And there are tons of studies. I'm not going to go into them, but a lot of them, unfortunately, were done on animals. And we're basically being fed food that is not anywhere near as good for us. It's cheaper. It's doing bad things for us, and in turn, we're having all these problems. And we're people going out and try to live our lives. Okay, so these are men that are living in this society. They're having these problems. They're facing this ever-changing situation in the workforce, pressures in society. The culture has changed where, and I'll just use this as an example. But if you look at certain genres of music, it is cool and fashionable to have cool clothes and cars, and to capture a mate and to have a high six-figure salary and all these things. Okay, the average man, if you look at that, they don't have these things. Okay, so they're having to engage in a society where all these things are happening around them. Okay, and all of these things contribute to where men are today in society. So it's a very difficult thing. I mentioned earlier, and I sort of segued a little bit about myself. I'm someone who loves. I'm very fortunate. I consider myself the luckiest person I know, at least. I'm someone who is very fortunate to do the work that I want to be doing. I love comics and I love animals, and I was successfully able to marry both into Sigma Comics and create this character. Here comes Calico. In short, I'm pursuing my passion, and in the process, I am supporting incredibly ethical and responsible charities that actually get results, while at the same time cultivating a team of creatives that are just getting better at what they do. And that makes me feel great, because we are ethically approaching two things: creativity in comics and the fight against animal cruelty, in a very cool and responsible and ethical way. So that makes me feel great. And I was only able to do that because of all the hard work that came before that. The fact that I've always been a saver, someone who never really took lots of lavish trips and bought expensive cars and wore expensive clothing. No, I've always been very conservative in the way I manage my fiscal situation. And as a result, I was, again, thankfully fortunate to be able to do what I'm doing now. But not everybody's like that. Okay. As for my personal life, I am single, and I've thrown myself entirely into what I'm doing. But I've had a very healthy dating life, and if and when that uh, occurs, I'm available for it. But I have to be perfectly honest with you. I genuinely, I can't even say it without laughing. Let me take a sip of my Calico mug here. Always good. I genuinely love my time alone, my solitude. I live in the greatest city in the world, New York City, and I love being creative. I am stimulated from the second I walk out the door, and that's not even true. I'm stimulated since the moment I get up. Folks, I am never bored, like ever. And it's one of the wonderful gifts of being a creative professional. Okay? I went to the School of Visual Arts. Very fortunate to have gone to that school. And I had enormously talented teachers and mentors that instilled in me a wonderful uh, just support and cultivating of my passion for the arts. And I am in enormous debt to these people. Okay, I think all of us are creative people. I really do. Uh, if you pick up a pencil or a pen and you find yourself, being the kind of person that says, hey, I can't really draw. I only do stick figures. Even you, okay, I consider to be a creative person. We all have it in us. It's just cultivating it, okay, and getting into that process of exercising it. You can't go into the gym and try to bench 300-400 pounds. Okay, it takes time. You have to go to the gym religiously. Okay, little by little, you start doing, your weights, certain body parts, small weights. You see what your body can handle. You get the nutrition in, you get the rest, and then the next day is the next day. It's the same thing with creativity, folks. Any of you watching this video who want to in any way enter any creative discipline, even as a hobby, just to sort of do something that you really want to sort of learn about and see if you could exercise it, please do it. And start small. Play small ball. Just try to get on base with it. And that's all you need to do, because it may be that this could be something that can turn into a wonderful passion. And the reason I'm telling you this in the reference to this topic, in relation, to this topic, men and them struggling, of course, our book Calico, Unwanted Men, is when you have something that you are deeply passionate about and you're able to actually start creating and cultivating that, boy, there is nothing like that. That is an incredible spiritual satiation that you have. You have deep, deep satisfaction in your life when you have that. And that's what I have in my life. I have to tell you. When I wake up in the morning, I cannot wait to tear into the day. I really can't. Okay? And again, this is for men out there. Just habitually, for myself, I am a former pro athlete. If you're looking for that kind of guidance, I'll give it to you right now. I'll tell you what my routine is. I get up in the morning, typically around 7. And the first thing I do when I wake up is I rinse my mouth very well a few times with water. Okay, get all that bacteria from the night out. And I drink a full glass of water, and a big one, 20 ounces of water. And immediately after I go and I brush my teeth. Okay, I use, if you want to get detail, I use the Peroxycare, or the one that, the baking soda one. I think it's called Peroxycare or something like that. Okay, I brush my teeth very well. I have, see, every morning. And I get right on, I hop on my computer, I check emails, see whatever I'm going to do. If I'm writing at the time, a book, our Calico book, the first thing I'll do after I do that is I head to and do a workout. Okay, sometimes I do a long walk, 5 miles, and I find myself that I can write while I walk because I use the phone and I use the speech to text. and I can get a whole outline done in a walk. Things like that. And then I go right to the gym, do some workouts, and then go back to emails and do a bunch of other things, cook some lunch. I only eat twice a day. I have a lunch and a dinner. And I do intermittent fasting. It's something that I wasn't even conscious of, frankly, when I was doing it. I've been doing it since I've been in my 20s. And the reason I did it is because when I was a fighter, some of you may know I used to be a professional fighter, okay, and an amateur boxer in New York, and then a pro MMA fighter nationally. But it was never good for me because I was an early gym goer. I was always at the gym as soon as it opened, around 11. I always sparred. That was the first part of my training, was the sparring. And it would be minimum about a 3-round spar. Sometimes it would be 6 rounds, and of course rounds are 3 minutes. But there's a process by which you get ready for that. There's the warm-ups. You have to do 3 rounds of shadow boxing. You get your hands wrapped. You stretch. A bunch of things. The floor exercises. And then, of course, you get into the ring for the sparring session. The bottom line is I enter the ring around 12, 12:15, which is to say that I would never eat breakfast. I would not want to eat anything in my stomach going into spar. It's just not something that you want to do. And that was my habit, and I carry it to this day, even though I do not spar these days. Okay? So that was really what got me into intermittent fasting, uh, avoiding body shots with food in the stomach, right? All right, so my meals would come after my sparring session. And I'd leave the gym about 1:30 or something like that. That's when I would have my lunch, and my dinner I'd have around 6. And everything else was fasted. All right, and I keep the diet to this day. I have a very fat face, and it's actually the farthest thing. I'm actually not fat. Believe it or not, with this fat face that I drag around, I actually have a 32-inch waist. At 5'10", I'm actually in pretty decent shape. You really can't tell because of my fat face here. But I walk around 190, 185, 190, which is only, I'd say, 20 pounds over my fighting weight. But a lot of it's muscle. The bottom line is, if you take care of your body, and there's just one more thing. I drink at least 5 glasses of water. They're 20 ounces a day. If you do the math, that's 100 ounces of water. So get yourself some water, enough water every day. Eat healthy. I eat lots of fish and vegetables. I don't eat mammal meats. I haven't, or poultry, since I was in my 20s. The only foods that I do eat that consist of animal is fish. I do eat seafood. That I do. Ultimately, I think the vegan diet is the healthiest, and I do strive for that. Hopefully one day. But ultimately, if you take care of your body, it's going to take care of your mind, and it's going to take care of your positive mindset to do all these things that I'm telling you here. Okay, so knowing that men are faced with difficult circumstances, I think it starts from the ground up in what you put in your body. That'll always keep you in a positive situations. We're all going to have bad days. I've certainly had them. But if you start the day with good nutrition, it's going to help maintain your positive mindset always. Okay, it's going to help you when you do get when you are faced with negative things. Okay, your body is clean and healthy, your mind is clean and healthy. You're able to see things more acutely, hear things more acutely, and address the obstacle in a better, more positive mindset, so that you can wrap that negative thing and overcome it with intelligence, with fortitude, and bravado. Okay, and this is why it's important for all the guys out there. Some of you guys have terrible diets. You drink heavily. That's another thing. I rarely drink. Very rarely. I have quite a few bottles of wine here in my apartment, and I never open them up. If I have a guest that comes, I'll have maybe a half a glass of wine with the guest, and that's really it. But of course, I used to drink more heavily in my younger years, but never excessively. I'd have maybe 2 or 3 beers or something like that. But these days, that's very rare. Bottom line is, take care of yourself. Take care of your body, because if you do, that's going to lay the groundwork for engaging all these things that come to us as men today. That are difficult, really difficult, and for some of us, get us really down and depress us. Okay, listen, I've been hit with some hard situations, some situations that have been very difficult for me to take. Okay, not once have I ever doubted myself or got down and in the dumps about it to the point where I wasn't functional. You know, I allowed myself to get emotional, to hurt, and to get it out. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out a way to shake this off and stand back up. Okay, this is why fighting is such an analogous sport to life. Okay, you are going to get knocked down, guys. You are. But what makes you a man is your ability to take that punch and stand back up and put a step forward. And do so with confidence, strength, and the fortitude and the intelligence to do this stuff. You know, just a slight segue. I was going to end it right there, but just a slight thing. I remember, you know, when we fight uh, as a club, okay, we go with a few fighters. Okay, I was the junior middleweight from my gym, 156 pounds. Okay, that means you're right in the middle of lightweights and heavyweights. Okay, that means that you're very fast and you're very strong. You have a good balance, and I had that as a fighter. I remember there was a guy. He was a new guy in our gym, and he was, I think he was, I don't know if he was Polish. Now that I'm thinking about it, but he was a really tough, scrappy guy, very tough. Okay, and our trainer at the time, he took him and he decided to train him for what his strength was, which was being a what's called a pressure fighter. This is somebody who's in your face, who's following you all around the ring, etc., etc. And I remember him in the first fight that I saw him at. He was getting his butt kicked, just handed to him. And really, it's because he was fighting a polished, stylish fighter. There's, for those of the, for the uninitiated, there's lots of different types of fighters. You have fighters, again, like the pressure fighter who fights wherever you go, he follows you around. You have counter punchers who don't necessarily pressure you, but are waiting for you to throw a punch and or make a mistake, and that's when they uh, evade it and capitalize. You have people who fight from a distance, who never let the opponent close. Typically, those are people with long reaches. But and then on and so on and so forth. The bottom line is this guy, he was trained to fight the to his strength. Okay, he lost every single round. Okay, and at the end of the fight, he also lost the fight as well. And I remember, I'll never forget this. He came up to the trainer, and I was right there next to him. I had won my fight that night, and he's like, "Hey, you know, I said I listened to you, you know, with every round. What the heck? What's going on? Why did I lose? This and that." And the trainer said, our trainer said, "You didn't lose. Okay, you may have lost here on the scorecards, but you took everything this guy had, and you gave him even more. He was just a little quicker than you and a little stylish, and you know made the fight look better for him, and he got the win on the scorecards. If that fight would have taken place in the street, there's no bell sounding. Okay, there's no in between rounds. That guy would have been done in the first round if this was out in the street." And it's true. He was the scrappier, tougher fighter. And if this fight would have taken place in the street, nothing was going to be saving that other guy. And that's why he was trained that way. Because eventually, after a few more fights, he started winning every single one of his fights because he corrected the little things that he needed to do to get the win. Anyway, that's a little example here to always stay positive and keep pushing forward because you're not going to win every fight. You're not going to be the very best. You're not going to get the medal or the belt or whatever it is. You're going to get rejections. You got to stay positive out there. Okay, you have to because life is going to hit you hard, especially this one. Here you are in 2026 as a man. But anyway, let me give you the last one. Let me give you the last one, and it is the reminder that we have Calico Unwanted Men. Guys, I mean, I can't tell you enough. If you're a man, you really need to read this book. It really centers on what it's like to be a man in today's society. This one's for you guys. Again, recommended by these great creators here, and certainly by myself. It's on Kickstarter right now. All you need to do is go to Kickstarter.com, type in Calico Unwanted Men. You could check out a trailer, a nice video there. You could also download the first chapter and check it out. And you could see, of course, all the great rewards that are on the page. And let me tell you something. You're going to want to pick up a book or two, or all of them, because you're really going to love it, especially if you're a man. That's it. I'm out. And remember what I always tell you. Keep on fighting for animals.